Hi, welcome back to How to Hunter, Heroic Hunter Guides for Dragon Soul. This week we are on Warmaster Blackhorn. Quite a difficult fight, I found. We struggled on this a little bit, but there's, like a lot of the heroic fights, there's a couple of things you just have to get right, and once you get those right it all falls into place and becomes a lot easier. So I'm going to just walk you through. This is our run through of the fight. Okay, so at the start of the fight you get Warmaster Blackhorn and his dragon Gariona fly past. This is even before the combat officially starts, and then you get two drakes with some dudes on the back fly past as well. So I think this is a good point to start talking about how this fight is different to normal mode. The main difference is the ship takes a lot more damage a lot more easily, and subsequently as it takes damage you'll get fire appearing on the ship, and that fire is going to obviously, a couple of things that's going to do is damage to you if you stand in it, and also it makes maneuvering around on the ship a little bit more difficult. Okay, so that fire appears as the ship takes damage, and that's the important thing to remember, because if you're not careful, it's the fire that's going to kill you, not anything else. Okay, so the key thing is you need to prevent the ship from taking as much damage as possible, and the two ways that it takes damage that you can do anything about is the Onslaught that you saw there, and also the Twilight Barrages. Okay, Twilight Barrages, number one. Critically important that you remember this. The drakes that are on the side, they're the things that are shooting the Twilight Barrages. You probably don't see this because they're kind of out of your field of view most of the time. So, get the drakes down, kill them as quickly as possible, and it stops Twilight Barrages being fired at the ship. That's excellent. Okay, so you should be getting that drake down first time, every single time. It will fly past. It will fly in just off the edge of the ship, just out of reach for a little while, and then it is harpooned and dragged in, and after a while it will fly back up again. You need to get it down before it flies back up again. The Twilight Onslaught, there's lots of tactics and lots of guides on the internet about how to deal with this, and you know, for guilds that have done it their way, that's fine. But what I will say, and it's not massively clear about this part of the Onslaught, but the damage is shared between all of the people standing in it and the ship, and that's another key thing that a lot of people aren't reading in the encounter journal. So if you've got one person standing in the Onslaught, and your classes can mitigate all of the damage, if you've got one person standing in that, that's shared equally between that one person and the ship. So we found that we couldn't really realistically have one person taking that Onslaught at any point. We all had to share it out equally. If you think about it, 10 people standing in the Onslaught means the ship is going to take an 11th of the damage, and so will all the people as well. And remember, the point you're trying to get across here, the thing you're trying to do is prevent the ship from taking unnecessary damage. Okay, so by getting as many people into that Onslaught and getting the drakes down as soon as possible, and also getting into what few barrages there are, you should be mitigating enough damage to get through to phase 2, which we've just gone into here. And look, if we've got no fire on the ship at all, that's the ideal situation you want to be in. So phase 2 is, again, it's pretty much exactly the same as normal mode and looking for raid mode, apart from, you might have noticed, Gariona has come down onto the ship as well. Now from a ranged DPS point of view, it's irrelevant what she's doing. She's just going to do some damage to the tanks, and you don't really have to think about that. What you can do to help out though is to do a misdirect to your designated tank for Gariona as soon as she lands. That will help your entire raid. But other than that, the damage that she does is irrelevant. You will need to move out of Warmaster's kind of stamp thing that stuns you. That goes without saying. You don't actually kill Garyona, so that makes me think at some point in the future we're probably going to see her in another raid. But she does fly off at about 20%, as she's just done there. And then we just get to fight Warmaster Blackhorn. And again, from a DPS point of view, it's exactly the same now as Phase 2 in normal and in looking for raid. Now what we've done here is we've split out where I'm stood here, and on the opposite side we've got myself and another class that can move very quickly. And then just to the left, sorry, to the right of the boss, we've got the rest of the ranged. And what we're trying to do is to get his shockwave to not fall on everybody at the same time, basically. We're trying to, because it goes to a random person. Other than that, just keep DPSing. You don't really have to move now if you're lucky. And at this point, from a DPS point of view, you should have got the kill. Okay, let's talk about what you can do to maximize your DPS on this encounter. And again, what we're going to be doing here is primarily looking at Drake DPS, because that's your job as a ranged, getting those Drakes down. Okay, so if we go right back to the start of the fight, as I mentioned, as soon as combat starts, you're going to get Warmaster and Garyona fly over you. Now, I'm playing Survival here, and I think Survival works really well despite the amount of movement we have to do. But as soon as Garyona and Blackhorn appear, what you're going to do is you're going to put a Hunter's Mark on those, Black Arrow and Serpent Sting. Now I'm stood on this little pillar here. It just means you're not going to get line of sight issues on the banister, which is odd. You wouldn't have thought that would happen. Now at this point, what we're hoping for, and I've just got on there, is a lock and load proc, which is going to be ready for the Drake. So target the Drake as soon as it gets in range, Hunter's Mark, and explosive shot, Serpent Sting, then get down to the centre of the deck as soon as possible, and you should be there in time to put another Black Arrow on and Serpent Sting, and that's going to do quite a lot of damage on that initial Drake anyway. Additionally, you might want to position your pet to start in the middle, because especially if you stood on that little handrail thing, he kind of has some pathing issues coming down. Personally, I found it wasn't worth pre-potting or even doing cooldowns at the start of the fight, primarily because there's a lot of downtime between when Warmaster Blackhorn first appears, the Drake, and then when you actually start the fight. So it's not really necessary. The first round of Drakes go down really quickly, and as you're seeing here, we've got one of these Slayers up, and at that point we've actually got downtime. So DPS shouldn't really be a massive issue on that first wave. Okay, now it's always good to remember that the Drakes are our priority. So when we get the next set of Drakes flying in, and what you can do before they're even in range of the ship, you can whack on a Hunter's Mark, and then when they are in range of the ship, Black Arrow, Serpent Sting, Explosive Shot, anything you can to help out with the DPS. Also, it's very important to remember that you might not be getting all the debuffs you want onto that Drake, primarily because of who's actually DPSing it. So what I found personally was that the armor debuff was a good one to be putting onto the Drakes. That helps everybody who's DPSing out on it. And then the only other thing to remember is that the Drakes, the third set of Drakes, time really badly with an Onslaught and a Sapper and some Barrages as well. So if you're going to use cooldowns early on in the fight, let's say you're struggling on the third set of Drakes when they're harpooned in, that would be a good time to use them. In this particular version, we'd been practicing on this for a couple of weeks and we didn't actually have that much difficulty, but just be prepared for that. You need to get those Drakes down, and other than that, you know, as long as you're soaking up those barrages, you're all collectively taking the Onslaught, you're getting the Drakes down, and of course I've not even mentioned the Sappers, but don't ever be letting a Sapper through. A Sapper shouldn't really be that much difficulty to get down. I find nameplates turned on really does help, but with the Hunter and his concussive shot, and with our raid comp here, we've got a Death Knight, so he's got Death Grip, which is also very good, and the Shadow Priest, with that ability that Shadow Priests have, that I don't know what it is, but you know, you shouldn't really have much difficulty. But do remember, don't ever let Sapper through. They're actually the top of your priority, so it's priority is Sapper, Drake, then the Slayers. So other than that, you should get through okay, and if you're lucky, because this boss does have some good loot for hunters, you're going to be like me and you're going to get the Starcatcher Compass. Yummy. Okay, right, we'll see you next time. I don't know what we're going to be doing next, because I've kind of stepped down from raiding a little bit, so I don't know when I'll be doing the Spine of Deathwing heroic encounter. Who knows? But as soon as I've done it, I'll be putting a guide up and telling you how to be a decent hunter on it. Okay, see you next time.